Well, I will... Oh, do I? I might have to go out and get a tan or something then. Normally, you know, normally the store is a place where people go in to get pale instead of going in to get tan. Oh, or are you talking to, because the players all will use makeup or wigs or props and whatever, and so that could very well be a part of the you know, that's a part of the presentation that they've all willingly done that. I've not asked them to you know, to bring any of that to the camera, to the table, but I'm very happy that they've decided to do so in various ways. All right, so let's talk about fantasy noir. You know, speaking of things that are perhaps grim, a little hard-boiled, kind of grisly, perhaps discovering tragedy, and how do you run that as opposed to a normal, you know, swords and sorcery, kick in the door, or, you know, you got to stop the corrupt noble from summoning the devil that was giving their family power, stop the lich from raising an undead army to take over the world. Things that are, pardon, maybe more commonplace in our concepts of role-playing fantasy. I mean, it could involve some piracy or at least some privateering, GM Vault. Let's get grim. Oh, yes. Well, then, Misfit, we're going to delve into it. Far from a dungeon crawl, dragon fight, or lich hunt, where characters expect gifts, gold, and glittering prizes, fantasy noir makes a perfect starting touchstone, or one to return to for players that desire a more dynamic experience in play, character development, and roleplay. In these types of stories, moral ambiguity, violence, and corruption are a part of everyday life, and outside of those hard truths, little is what it seems. Kind of reminds me, there's a Zen koan, K-O-A-N. So it's like a saying, something to consider, a riddle, if you will. And the koan goes, nothing is as it seems, neither is it otherwise. Contemplate on that. Nothing is as it seems, neither is it otherwise. Every choice is a decision that has consequences and will come back to either haunt or reward the characters in some way as the story comes to fruition. These types of campagnas are usually comprised of a series of one-shot odd jobs, deliveries, heists, and mysteries, where each individual event grants a moment, a clue, or a witness, leading the characters to piece together the circumstance of larger notions at play. Coupling these themes with the low-wide magic setting of Eberron creates a perfect culmination of technological convenience through esoteric cantrips and low-level spells without nullifying a great deal of the challenges that the lowly protagonists of noir stories grapple with throughout their journey. Oh, the vanilla-flavored Zen koan, please. You think it's pronounced koan? It could very well be a koan. I mean, my own Japanese, like, I guess that was my Americanization of K-O-A-N, but yes, I believe that you're correct, Evelyn. You know, this is something, too, that I told the players on Tuesday. You know, what are they willing to pay in order to get what they want? What are they willing to give in order to get? And you can ask yourself if that applied last night, or if that's applied elsewhere, or to find out what the group is going to be doing this coming Tuesday, right? There are consequences, there are decisions. You know, are you willing to go, what are you willing to put in? Are Are you willing to open yourself up to pain, to questioning fundamental beliefs, to reconsidering who you are as a person, if it means accomplishing the goal that you seek? And not just with the player characters. Because what are the other forces at play giving in order to get what they want? Drug addictions can be, very much be a part of fantasy noir. Greater expectations. In establishing a noir setting for your game, the location is not as important as the nature of the location. Noir settings are built on shattered lives and broken dreams. The inhabitants share similar attitudes about the world in which they live, often equating morality with vulnerability and weakness. The setting itself seems to perpetuate the impression that idealism and self-preservation can't coexist. This bleak outlook should remain the backdrop of the story, as though the only thing keeping the characters from being swallowed up by the meaninglessness of the setting is their motivation to rise above this atmosphere. Crime and consequence contribute heavily to a noir story and its settings, because secrets permeate the story and drive the events that occur over the course of a noir-style narrative. Crime is currency of change. In a setting where sins of the past dominate the lives of the characters in it, only greater sins stand to change it, and embracing vice and wrongdoing is the easiest way to exert control over the setting and those within it. The actions of the characters can, of course, impact the influence crime has on a setting. By interfering with organized crime and the most ignoble of adversaries, the characters could impact the setting for the better, but at a price. If the party manages to take down a local gangster, the characters might draw the attention of an even more powerful crime boss, and the effects of this will be represented in the setting. The same could occur should the party choose to help another character. They might unknowingly ensure the deaths of others. Any character the players might encounter could have pasts that are not only as equally dark as their own, but they might also carry dangerous secrets to the player characters and others in the present. These perils further contribute to the thematic elements that the world around the characters is not to be trusted, and is made up of others who, if they haven't fallen to the nature of the moral darkness around them, have every reason to turn on them for a chance to get ahead. Razia says, one of my players wants Wicker of a Dragon. I have no idea. How do I let him get it? Because the item he is making is cool and I can't deny him that. Oh, like a whisker, you mean? Like a whisker? If I... If that's the case, Razia, and it's something like that, there could be, I don't know, a museum, a public museum, or maybe a private collector, a noble who has such an item. And it could end up turning into crime. It could turn into a heist. Or if they see it as some sort of a justice, that it's a tyrant that owns this whisker of a dragon, to break in and steal it back as a symbol of the people. Or even if they sympathize with the dragon, they make contact with it, and the dragon says, you know, if you can fetch back this whisker of mine and prove yourselves loyal to me, that you're not just, you know, lying to me to, you know, have access to my power, my wealth. A dragon's whisker. Yeah, so these are all ideas for you, Razia. It could already be detached and in someone else's ownership. Precarious pasts. In most adventuring, the characters are at the center of the conflict. Ultimately, the outcome will dictate huge swaths of their lives, which are morally black and white, clear-cut, and even when in doubt, they will likely be vindicated. For such hard-boiled equivalents like capers, crime thrillers, and detective narratives, hope remains intact. Solving the crime will save the day and reset normality. However, in a noir, the contrary is the norm. The sins of a character's past typically live alongside the hope that they will finally be accepted for who they are, and that all will be right with the world. This is not to say they aren't empathetic or entirely without hope. For the questionable protagonists of hard-boiled and noir narratives, a glimmer of success is all the hope necessary to keep them going, and that glimmer would also be what pushes them to take the moral or ethical risk that drop them into their current lot in life. Noir stories don't put the characters in the center of unfolding events, but instead make them participating observers who can attempt to ignore the situation or come to the rescue and get embroiled in the saga by meddling in the machinations of a foe that is smarter and better prepared than they may have hoped they'd be. The benefit is that with each glimpse of success, the seed of heroism grows a little more within. While mysteries are usually singular, a noir is ongoing and all-encompassing. These stories are always greater than the sum of their individual plots, no matter how far the protagonists attempt to run, or how poorly they fail. There is a moral, ethical, and emotional weight that usually draws them back into right or wrong, that they wouldn't dare risk for someone else. For this sort of story to work, special attention needs to be put on characters' questionable backgrounds, their corrupted past choices, and the vices or flaws that compromise their origin and current predicament when the story begins. Every character has lies they tell others, but these characters have lies they tell themselves. And by the end of the campaign, each house of lies should be the heartstrings that make their interconnected campaign narrative impossible to duplicate. Protecting the foundation of those lies will become paramount to drawing the characters back in when abandoning ship seems the wisest course of action. Hello, Syart, welcome back. Goblin Nobility, hey, welcome. So we have, Norton the Knoll, and then we have some other folks who are of various other humanoid origins, and so now it seems that we have some Goblin Nobility among us. Welcome. Goblin will take over this chat. Well, goblins are welcome in this chat, so don't you can chat your little goblin heart out as much as you'd like, Goblin Nobility. I brought an old player who's already the emperor of a city-state to fight a war against the current PCs, and I'm kind of stuck on the story. You can always change things. There are ways about it. So if you present what's going on compared to what you'd like, we can help bridge the two together, Rosia. A gnoll, 2 awoos, 2 sheep, a goblin, and 2 orcs. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we have easy orc, we have orcs make beautiful lovers, Norton the Knoll, we have fluffy sheep, and then we have sheeps, and then of course there's Dark Wolf, who's our Miss Awoo, and Black Wolf as well. Back in business, sire. That's awesome. And Eberron is an elf. Oh, BTW, everyone. And that's perfectly fine. I'm happy with these sort of extra RP and personalities that are being brought to the table, virtual or otherwise. To start, the tropes of the crime thriller can help to color your story. In fact, let me make this a little bit bigger, everyone. I have the DMG open because we can compare notes to the DMG for play style and some other things, but I want to make sure that that this can be enjoyed and read as well. Yes, yeah, Rhodey is formerly Black Wolf. Misfit says a cannibal. The nice guy of horror, says Evelyn the elf. So to start, the tropes of the crime thriller can help to color your story, but it's the shades of gray that will determine the volatility of each outcome. There are no fantastical or stalwart heroes, and every character is a pariah of sorts. In Eberron, it is easy to use the last war as the catalyst of a soldier's return home or a prisoner of war released to wander about a foreign nation. In either case, the world will never be as it was, and they are left questioning their oldest assumptions, mired in loss and the futility of it all. However, while atoning for their history, the adventurers of a noir campaign might linger over these existential quandaries during roleplay, as the characters seek potential solace from the past in each other's company. Noir allows characters to push beyond the standard fantasy tropes that are common to many campaigns, such as the gallant knight or sagely spellcaster, in favor of more unfamiliar possibilities, like the disgraced inquisitive, or the reluctant criminal. These stories allow the characters to explore moral dilemmas as well as test their mettle. Characters might go as far as betraying their families, friends, and all they believe if it's worth saving themselves. Ultimately, a noir character's journey is a long, stagnated road to redemption, where the final choice is often a matter of heroism versus self-preservation. But if someone has already decided altruism is its own reward, what compelling character journey remains to be had? Hello, Pneumonica. Welcome. Session 0. Ah, Session 0. First and foremost, in order to create a story that... By the way, is this refreshing? Is this refreshing to see a source document talking so earnestly about the storytelling and helping to guide you to maybe challenge yourself through this presentation, through this concept, or even using these more common terms such as Session 0, which many times might feel like it's our word. It doesn't belong in a rule book, but oh, it's cool that a rule book includes this. So Ivlon says this is old hat. This is, well, Ivlon, thank you for auditing D&D 101. You are, but I do know that you're the graduate assistant here. You know, you're already in grad school, and oh, so much setting. Yeah. And so really, this is kind of like a D&D. This is a D&D portal into concepts that are bread and butter in World of Darkness. Because many of the standard books, I mean, maybe, I don't know, Curse of Strahd might be the closest to encouraging something along these lines. Curse of Strahd is probably a noir-style campaign with some noir-style setting, like some nice gingerbread, you know, some nice window dressing. But if all you've ever played is D&D, and especially in a more standard setting or a standard style, then this could end up opening your eyes. And if you're comfortable with this, you're gonna love other settings like World of Darkness, or even if we get into if we go into Eclipse Phase. Eclipse Phase, well, Eclipse Phase could be noir. Maybe something more appropriate would be Dark Heresy, or its current incarnation. It's not called Dark Heresy anymore. It's called War and Glory, I think. I mean, noir is pretty broad. It technically covers everything from Neuromancer to the first season of Gunsmoke. Now, when you say messy, what are you getting at, Evelyn? All right, so first and foremost, in order to create a story that explores these themes, there needs to be a collaboration between the player and Dungeon Master. The shift from a hack-and-slash exploration can be jarring, and if players don't want to explore a different one, attempting to force it on them would be as tragically fated as most noir adaptations. It is important to remember that nearly all classic noir sees that virtue ultimately triumphs over greed and vice, while suffering is a hallmark of the character's tribulation. These types of stories are not necessarily uplifting at every turn, but for storytellers and players who are looking to question the societal attitudes and emotions they expect to see flourish in society during their sessions, the switch to noir can be just the trick, and is easily accomplished with the slightest melancholy or melodramatic twist within the appropriate atmosphere. Oh, the rules? I like the concepts. I got to play Eclipse Phase for like, I don't know, about 6 months or so in an ongoing story. I had fun doing it. Very cool character. Kind of tragic though, but a cool character. Syart, you can get this. This is the Morgrave Miscellany, Eberron sort of expansion PDF on DM's Guild. Players and DMs alike should consider... Oh, by the way, this is level 0 adventuring. And by the way, this is what we're going to be doing tomorrow. And we've even talked about this on the channel before, about making level 0 characters. 5th edition gives you an easy way to do this. And I'm glad that this is here so we can go over it. Players and DMs alike should consider reveling in the lower levels of the campaign so that the power inherent to each class doesn't outpace or make irrelevant through high magic some of the tough spots and decisions where a gritty street level campaign thrives. Equipped only with backgrounds and racial traits, the story can advance at a slower pace, progressing months of in-game time compressed between the unfolding events. Player characters at level 0. When starting an adventure before the characters would gain a level in any class, these characters are considered to be level 0. This means a player chooses the character's name, race, and background, but not a class. A character's gear is granted by the choices within their background. A character possesses the proficiencies granted by their race and background, while their proficiency bonus is 2. A level 0 character has 4 plus their constitution modifier for hit points and 1d4 hit die. When the character gains a level in any class, their hit die type changes based on their new class, but the total hit die remains 1. I need to give an example of noir speak. Are we talking vocab, or do you want me to give like an impromptu narrative of if I'm a DM and I'm presenting a a scene to you? What are you going for in particular, Derek? Flawed characters. Anti-heroes, instead of being the direct opposite of heroes, lack courage, idealism, and morality, whereas the flawed protagonists of a noir-style adventure still maintain all of these traits, but they remain layered under a tough cynicism that has built up to protect them, rationalizing their ability to look the other way when they stand to lose everything just to lend the hand. Players looking to create noir characters should understand that these characters are not anti-heroes, but are alone, likely abandoned by loved ones that they have wronged, or they have chosen that isolation to protect those they love. By embracing realistic and often negative characteristics, flaws, and vices, the players should be able to ensure that their characters have believable motivations without being evil. Fatalism and nihilism are that which they dread, but must grapple with just the same, and overindulging in those tropes might remove a character's desire to achieve. It is pivotal to ensure that the characters want something. The more empathetic that desire, the easier it will be for the group to stand beside a character when push comes to spell slinging. Excellent for the, yeah, TV Tropes is an excellent site, by the way, for any of you who are DMs. TV Tropes is a good site for you. I have mixed feelings about encouraging DMs busting out with some Dashiell Hammett narration. Osaka saying Deadpool is an old-timey detective. Just watched Tuesday Ending. Bellum showed up at an unusual time. Well, Bellum was in, not just in Green Shield in the last session either. Bellum had gone out into the wilds to try and search for this tree as well. And they ended up meeting in this abandoned, quote-unquote, loggers camp. Oh, okay, Evelyn got you covered. All right, Derek. And yeah, that's a very good link, everyone, if you want to check out what Derek had prompted. Origins fuels tone. More than anything else, a character helps reinforce the tone of a noir story through their origin and outlook. Beyond the abilities, skill sets, and mystical nature of each class, there are 3 things that are critical to the backstory of every character. Far from perfect, every character has a penchant, a great mistake, and a fall from grace. This gives characters greater flexibility to define their motivation, even if reluctantly, and conceptualize how to strive to be better than their past. Roger Twy says, down those mean dungeons, a character must go who is not himself mean? Oh, okay, I get it. That's with the wording order. Got it. Down those mean dungeons, a character must go who is not himself mean. Group mentality. Noir characters will work best if they are mired within a hyper-localized setting, scope, and systemic outlook, where mimetic description of atmosphere, plot, and violence can all help set the tone and gravity of the consequences that scale with the character's familiarity to the world and choices. It is up to the DM to communicate that world through such narration, but it is the player's responsibility to accept it as if it were real, and care for it with the same energy that those within the world seem to respond. Otherwise, the story and campaign will collapse under its own pretensions of the noir style. Yep, definitely D&D players' intro to World of Darkness. We have the blessing. It is important to remember that a campaign focuses on a group of characters, and thus a single character that embodies all the tropes of a noir protagonist might spell trouble, taking the woe is me or tough as nails focus in every interaction. Instead, work with the entire group to break apart some of the noir tropes, from the private investigator, the patsy, the journalist, dock worker, femme, or homme fatale. Characters can be bitter, damaged, violent, and taciturn, but still possess a desire for redemption. Knowing that giving up these secrets of their past might slide them further downward into the world they hope to escape could be just as potent a motivator as the character's drive for redemption. Oh my goodness, Chemist in? Well, thank you. By golly, everyone. Chemison, that is very generous of you. Yeah, well, Chemison, have you decided, do you want to hop on the mini bandwagon? Or are you looking, Chemison, what are you hoping to do here? I mean, besides, make me kind of blanch and go, oh my. Minis are cool. You can get several boxes of minis with that. As a heads up, everyone, I will have Monster Menagerie 3 coming in maybe tomorrow, Friday at the latest. And so the Dungeon of the Mad Mage I have, that's all I have for now, as my distributors seem to be sold out. But I was able to procure some Monster Menagerie 3s. I may not be able to play, but I enjoy watching what you do. Oh, Chemist, I hope that you watched Tuesday before you donated that. But that's very generous. And by the way, for the Fickle Gods who are supporting last night's session, those totals were added in to the TwitchCon goal. And so, Chemist, your support is as well. In my attempt to get out to California this September in order to network and learn and to bring back information and contacts and experience and all this to share with everyone. So thank you very much. That's a great boost, and the April goal has almost already been met. So that's, I'm very humbled. Thank you very much. Oh, cool. Well then, Goblin Nobility, if you're planning on going out there, then if you're comfortable doing so, we could even meet up and talk and have a grand old time. I'd love to meet some of you. If any of you are going to TwitchCon, I'd love to be able to meet you out there. It's in San Diego on September 27th through the 29th, if I recall correctly. The relationship between characters must be desperate enough to bind them into a cohesive group and save them from themselves by helping them make the choice to avoid self-destructive behaviors. Otherwise, they might repeat the pattern that led them... Oh, there's another, that should be LED. That led them to where they are now and doomed them to stay there. By spreading the different elements around the table, it could help...
To help you with your goal.
Oh my goodness. Chemist. Oh my gosh. Wow, I'm very humbled. Thank you, Chemist. That's I appreciate it. It is I mean it's certainly it's oh, Chemist flexing on us. There we go. Goblin Nobility has apparently summarized it better than my stammering has. Chemist Chemist is flexing on us. Oh my gosh. Boy, if that's the case, then if we're at that, we are then actually at... That puts us already into May. At least what the... Because I plotted out some expenses, and I was hoping that over the course of 6 months, I'd be able to hit these various goals to try and help with airfare and hotel accommodation in order to get out there. And so, wow. Chemist, well, I'll take partial credit. I will toot my own horn only so much. But honestly, I can't do this without the others who are here, which is why this is a personal goal for me to go out to San Diego to TwitchCon. However, it is a goal that is communal in nature because of my intention to bring back information, to share stories, to see if I can network with other people and make what we have going here stronger and better. So, Goblin, it sounds like you have an awesome NPC name for your next campaign, huh? You know it. I mean, Chemist does sound like a really awesome NPC name. Nicholas, thank you for saying so. You know, what we have going on here wouldn't be possible without the years I've spent trying to develop my own game store community, the culture in it, the expression, the desire to learn, to sit across from a table with other people and communicate despite the myriad differences that we have as human beings. You know, it's a... you know what you're doing is awesome when you have an avowed atheist, a devout Catholic, and maybe someone who's questioning or of another faith, all sitting down together, practicing polytheism through a series of deities in a D&D campaign, which of course, as we all know, is devil summoning. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but I knew what I was doing. What I was doing was right in the physical store. This was years before I was even on Twitch, before I even then started to step up and broadcast. We had a, you know, and we'll pretend this is part of noir. We'll give that glimmer of hope, right? The storytelling. I live next to an amusement park called Cedar Point. And people come from all over to work at Cedar Point. They provide employee housing. And so as long as you're working, they provide you housing for a modicum, you know, for a little bit of the check. You know, all the services and whatnot. There's a bus system to take you around town and all that. And also there's a system in place that for every hour that you worked over your contract, you would be paid a bonus. So let's say you worked, I don't know, 500 hours that summer. After you finish your contract, they would send you a check for $500. It's probably more now because that was years and years ago, but you get the idea. So anyway, you know, during the summer, I have a lot of Cedar Point employees that come into the store. It's their home away from home, away from home. Well, one summer, a guy comes in, heavy guy. He probably has some other medical stuff going on because, you know, the way he walks in, it looks kind of painful. You know, it could be something like an arthritis or something along those lines. And so despite that, you know, how he looks, he had glasses on, was wearing the Cedar Point uniform. Look, I did 5 tours. I'm sorry, I worked 5 seasons at Cedar Point. I say that with due respect. If anyone from Cedar Point management's out there watching, I'm not dissing y'all. I enjoyed my years. They helped me become the person I am today. Anyway. So, you know, someone from Cedar Point walks in and, you know, it looks like he's kind of hurting, but, you know, he definitely is taking an interest in comics. And like I would do with anyone, I don't care if they're, you know, 6'6", you know, a Fabio, if it's, you know, I have a family who comes in, with their son, who is in an electronic wheelchair and has like a respirator, in his throat. And, you know, obviously he requires some special care, but that kid loves comics. You know, and there's people with autism and just otherwise, you know, single parents and all walks of life come in through here. So I greet this person like I would greet anyone else. You know, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the store. If you have any questions, I'm here. It looks like you're looking at comic books. Is there something I can interest you in? Or do you have a question on what's out? What are the storylines? And, you know, we go over it, and he likes Superman, and, you know, we talked some, and so he said he'd come back, and he did. Over the course of the summer, he came back, and, you know, he bought some comic books, and I'd always greet him and chat. You know, we had some commiseration that we could share through our, through my former employer, his current at the time. And just talk, you know, sharing stories, and if I remember correctly, I think he was from Michigan, so he wasn't terribly far away, but obviously it wasn't a commute. So one day he comes into the store and he's in like normal clothes, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, is it a day off? What's going on?" And he says, "No, I've quit." And now, of course, if you quit your contract, all that bonus money is gone, right? You have to fulfill your contract. That could be several $100s just left behind. And so I talked to him like, "Oh, what's going on? Hopefully it's not a family emergency or something that happened." And he went on to tell me, he said, "No, I have some other employees and people that were giving me a hard time. They were bullying me. I'm paraphrasing. And I couldn't take it. It's not worth, you know, it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth being made fun of or being made to feel this way. And so I made the decision to quit. And before I left town here, I wanted to come to your store and let you know that this was the only place that really made me feel welcome, that made me feel normal, that I wasn't being stared at, or that people weren't making fun of me for my weight or because I like Superman or anything along those lines. And when he was saying that, like, I had this hardcore poker face. I mean, I was empathetic, but I was almost on the verge of tears. Because at that point in time, after only having been in that business for a couple years, and especially, you know, given the rough economic circumstances at the time and all that, like, here I had someone come in unprompted who went out of their way to say that the thing I was doing was what made them genuinely feel appreciated and empowered. I knew I was in the right line of business. And for all of the putting the bills in a hat and pulling out which one I was going to pay that month, for all of the stress, financial or otherwise, that was going on, that moment, that one moment in time, unprompted, unexpected, cemented my outlook and my goals and reaffirmed who I am and what I do, and encouraged me to be even better. Because if I earned a compliment like that with what I felt was my current circumstances, I knew that I could do even better. And to my recollection, I've never seen this person come back again, and I hope that he's healthy and successful and doing whatever he's doing in life. But, you know, damn it, if that moment hasn't stuck with me as the most poignant community moment. And there's been others. I mean, sitting down and teaching kids why shoplifting is, you know, hurts not just me but the community, and can, you know, and then because I'm I would, you know, sometimes I'd have the police come down and we'd be like, you know, do a good cop, bad cop, and they're like, yeah, I gotcha. And then we'd sit down with the kid and, you know, he'd be like, well, you know, if the owner really wants, I guess I'll have to take you down to juvenile. And then I'd look over at the police officer. I'm like, well, all right, hold on, sir. I understand that's an option, but let's see what we can find out here first. And then I look to the kid, and we try and teach a moral lesson through cooperation. And I've never had to send a kid to juvie, but I've definitely hoped that I've helped them in some way too. Oh boy, I've missed a ton of conversation. I'm sorry, everyone. Well, if any of you do come by Cedar Point, let me know, and I can show you all the cool local stuff. Maybe we can even raise a beer together. Oh, Sheeps, hello and welcome. Of course I play good cop. You know it, Evelyn. Klepto plays, did Jade survive? I will direct you to the VOD or someone else to let you know, Klepto, what happened. I don't know what kind of art you do, so make it a good one. I do woodworking. Oh, that's cool, Chemison. If you do woodworking, then actually, Chemison, maybe there's a couple things that I might be able to ask of you in return, since I do business with people who do business with me. Maddie's soapbox rants, yeah, Misfit. I got on a soapbox there. This type of story's nice. Well, I'm glad you appreciate it, Rosia. I've never stolen anything in a retail store. So what kind of stores did you steal from? I'm just kidding, Klepto. Although by that, you know, by the name. I'll definitely be coming by the shop to hang out for a day. That'd be awesome, Misfit. a toe each. I'm not sure if I get that, Rosia. But yeah, if any of you are in town, I'll show you all the cool places. And I'll raise a cup with you, no problem. Oh, you had some stuff to do. Well, Jade did get eaten. There are 4 party members arriving back at Green Shield. Oh, Sheeps, I tried to steal a chapstick when I was like 5 and my mom was staring at me the whole time like you're not sneaky. Yeah, oh, Sheeps, if I ever do something like, I don't know, if I'm getting like a 12-pack of cans and I put it in the bottom of the cart and I'm doing a self-checkout and maybe I'm on the phone or I'm talking because there's someone I know at this, I run into a lot of people that I know and I get chatty, and you know, the one person manning like the 6 or 8 self-checkout stations doesn't know or care. And if I go out to the car and I have like that 12-pack and I notice it, I check my receipt, and if it's not there, I march right back in, and I tell the person I apologize. This is what happened. I was chatty. This is it. I'm gonna check out on this register and take off again. And you know, in times like that, when something like that's happened, you just get that kind of like, oh, okay, look. But you know what? I felt better for it. Oh, a tower. Oh, well, Razia, there is a good local place. I'll share with you all. If any of you are in town, there's a couple places we can go, and one of them that probably a lot of you would enjoy would be there. Because definitely take a look at their if you enjoy beverages, check out what they have on tap. But they also serve awesome Asian cuisine. Well, that's because we can self-checkout registers the theft queue. Kind of. I used to be super pirate content thief with many public use machines seeding my pirated contents. I am #reformed now. I've gotten all the way home with something I accidentally tucked away, and I was like, oh, crap, and I ran straight back. Yep, oh, sheeps. Yep. It is. Yeah, the family that runs that establishment, awesome Vietnamese family. They've done an excellent job with that restaurant, and it's a great highlight of the downtown area. City store, cops every day, no trespasses. Oh, yeah, because people come in and try and, you know. So speaking of things, by the way, so stuff like that, you know, Misfit, to kind of bring it back around to the noir discussion, you know, that kind of thing. So you see this every day, right? And it can just be, it could be soul crushing, right? You know, crime, petty crime, like stuff that, you know, in kids, especially if it's kids. I mean, kids can be dumb, but then you sometimes you get those kids that maybe their parents coached them, or maybe they're stealing because they have to because of the abuses, neglect, or poverty at home. Or, you know, you get someone who's busted for, I don't know, they have a job, they have whatever, and suddenly they get arrested for stealing, I don't know, eyeliner. Or they get arrested for stealing, I don't know, just something that it's asinine, right? And you're like, why are you threatening your employability with this? Is it worth it to do? And it could be very heart, you know, it could be heavy on the heart. We ask ourselves why, or you see the patterns. If any of you have worked in, retail, especially things like groceries, you know what the busy weekends are. You know what the common theft items are. You can see different socioeconomic circumstances play out before you, and it especially hurts because you may very well hold in your heart, you know, we are all human beings, and we all have, you know, and we all deserve a chance and consideration. And then when, you know, a stereotype occurs, and it's reinforced on a consistent basis, and it challenges your honest-to-goodness belief and faith in humanity, which you still hold on to, you want to persevere. You know, we want to talk about the city of Sharn and Eberron. You know, because we're making some real comparisons, but if that's getting too heavy, we can take it into fantasy as well. You know, where you see this, and you have to keep telling yourself, this is only one part of society. This is only, like, my store is one extension. And for all of the other things that can happen in life, maybe it doesn't and it's not as bad. But for some reason, it could be the culture of my store. It could be a lot of different things. That is just... But because you're there so often, right? You're in the big city. You know, you're in Sharn. There's a bunch of mobs, you know, gangsters running the place. I mean, we can even take this over to Ravnica. Like, Sharn and District 10 in Ravnica, kind of the same thing. The same thing, but different. I don't know if Ravnica is presented, though, as noir or gritty, per se. You know, but you see this. And you look at the poverty, and, you know, and so, you know, Derek, you asked me for some noir, language before. If we're in a campaign, and there's 4 of you, you know, you're adventurers, we're playing D&D, but it's a noir setting, and I tell you, you're going past an old tenement building, and, you know, there's sobbing going on. And you look up, and it's the 3rd floor window that's open again, and the sobbing is coming out of there. And you know that is, you know, that's the, I'll just make up a name here. It's the Rollcall Family. You can, by the way, this is where I get fantasy names. You just look at what's around you. Rollcall. It's the Rollcalls. And you're like, oh, I guess old man Rollcall's beating on his wife again. And you have to ask yourself, do you want, as an adventurer, do you want her being beaten up because, oh, it seems like this is clockwork? Or do you have something more important to do? And Rollcall is a doctor. In fact, Rollcall is the one who comes to your house when your kid is sick. And is even willing to give you a discount on services. But in his private life, Dr. Rollcall is a real son of a bitch. But you have more important stuff to do in your campaign, right? We have to catch a murderer. Do we have time for this? And yet, every time you walk past there, Dr. Rollcall's wife seems to be sobbing. So, yes, Chemist, those bits get added to the goal, and as Evelyn said, you crushed April so hard we're now into May. I still treat everyone with respect. I just know it's some of them that will defy the respect I pay them. And it, you know, you gotta struggle to be the better person. And that's where a game like Eberron, if you're playing in the noir style, that's where World of Darkness. That's where, you know, we call Dark Heresy Grimdark. And Grimdark is broader than just Warhammer 40k. You know, but you have Grimdark. It's the struggle to realize that, you know what, to be a decent human being, I just have to not be a bad human being. And if that's the measure of success, yeah, I feel good about it, but I also, have I earned it? Do you get that reward justification, the tingly brain chemicals of reward for simply not being a bad person? Rakdos and Tamira would be happy. Hey, Technotron. Yeah, exactly. Dr. Rollcall's about to get deaded, and yet, Klepto, if you went in there, what if Dr. Rollcall has an important surgery to save a kid's life tomorrow? Victor survived the ad purgatory. Welcome. GM Vault, that's what's called moral imperative. Which path will the PCs choose? Klepto says, screw that man. Dr. Rollcall's good deeds do not negate his evil deeds. This is not a net positive.
For your goal here is...
Oh. Derek, I hope you draw something extra purty for him. My gosh, Chemist. The flex. Goblin, this isn't flexing. Chemist is straight on asserting T-posing dominance. Or, I guess, bit-posing dominance. Oh my gosh. Bit posing. There you go. I love it. Rosia, take his wife and make her my wife? That, you know, if that's the option, right? You know, you leave him to stew in you know, in misery. And you know, if you think you can give this person a better life in this prompt. And mnemonic. I suppose that's happening as well. We just can't escape the first-person culture on Twitch here, even in D&D. That's fine. That was good for a laugh. But look at this, everyone. I mean, so we're talking about things like moral ambiguity, or sometimes you can just have your soul crushed by the circumstances of other people's lives. I showed you a generic diet soda, and just by discussing a concept about Diet Dr. K, although of course maybe that's his first name, Dr. something Rollcall. What have we just done? You all might have had your hackles raised. You might have gotten your blood pressure up a little bit. You have been conceptualizing this scene that was painted in front of you. You know, whether we're talking about real life and retail stores, or if we're talking about fantasy, or just the fact that from a can of generic just off-brand Diet Dr. Pepper. Yeah, GM Vault died. Hey, that's a great name. GM Vault, that's a great name for a level 0 pulp session. Right? Die, Dr. K. And that story could very well be about the murder of Dr. Rollcall. And as far as your characters knew, Dr. Rollcall was a good dude. But when you start digging into Dr. Rollcall's life, you realize that this was, yeah, X-Men, welcome to die. You know, when you start looking through investigation into this man's life, and you find out what a scumbag he is, and yet you're tasked to bring justice because of his murder, that, my friends, that's a D&D campaign. It might not be your standard one. That definitely delves into noir. Because think of this too, right? What if you're playing a character with anger issues? What if you're playing a character that has a short fuse? Is it any different if you snap as a gumshoe and you just whack a criminal because he won't stop talking bad? You know, he's not assaulting you, but he's just assault. He is insulting, but not assaulting you. And you give him a thwack across, as opposed to, you know, the dog won't shut up. Yipe! You give the dog a thwack. And you may say, well, but I'm a gumshoe. I'm solving crimes. I'm helping people. And yet, you know, when you come home, your dog is happy to see you, but its tail's between its legs. Dr. K looks like something I'd feed all my goblin warriors. You don't realize what you have done for me. I have a severe fear of dealing with others. I really want to play, but I have a severe fear of talking to others. Chemist, even if it's, well, all right, pardon the pun, even if it's bit by bit. Well, if this is my bits to you, this bit by bit, even if it's bit by bit, Chemist, the exchanges we have here aren't contrived. This is not me, you know, putting on a show. This is, I mean, I'm putting on a show, but this is me putting on a show. This is authentic interaction as best as we can have it through a broadcast medium. And if this is helping to acclimatize you to interactions, to giving you prompts to perhaps use in your own life, in your personal life, to make it easier to talk to people, to find relatability, to take comfort, even perhaps in an awkward situation, because you have a good recovery for it, bit by bit, we're doing it. The way I look at it, actions in a person's life do not sum up a net positive or negative. Every single action resets their value to the world to 0. Good deeds give you a spike to the green, bad deeds give you a spike to the red. If you spike too far into the red, you lose your right to continue. Can you do the surgery from a wheelchair? Leave it to your imagination, says Misfit. This chat's way more active than I'm used to. Hey, I'm glad that we have a great audience going for us here. Of people who are chatting, lurkers. Even, I suppose, we can welcome our bot overlords that are out here. But you know, all of this, everyone, this is D&D. Everything we're talking about, because D&D is a reflection of our lives. The concepts and the values we hold are the things we want to explore. Just keep his head and fingers unbroken. I'm not a fake streamer. I surely hope I don't come across as such. Taking the bit between his teeth and pulling. No problem, Klepto. Yeah, well, yeah, and if you want to, remember that our Discord is a good place to just sort of, like, keep your story as well for a while. Would be more interactive, but I'm working on a new drawing, enjoying the conversation. Yeah, Nicolix, while I certainly enjoy an active chat, this channel can most of the time be enjoyed almost like a radio program. Listen to it in the background while you're working. You know, maybe you're an architect and you're actually like working on a draft of a blueprint. You know, maybe you're doing your taxes. Heck, maybe you're playing Bloodborne, and you have this in the background. I really want this program to be as accessible and meaningful as possible. See, GM Vault is online looking for a new dentist, so there we go. All tabletop RPGs are a social experience. Although I was never that big into them, I do miss the old social games that have 100% random characters and super simple rule sets that would be played over beer and pretzels. Yeah, so like Lasers and Feelings, or the other version, Tactical Waifu. Or there's a lot of other just sort of, you know, have fun. You can play D&D with kick in the door and just, you know, random monster. Or if you don't want to play D&D and you want it more like that, New Monica, that's why Munchkin exists, right? And, oh, yeah, so Victor's telling the story of a siege battle that he's been going through. It is often unexplored, Klepto. And you know what? When we're talking about, there's the comment above, by the way, about making sure that his head and his fingers are unbroken. You know, if you're making this noir character, right? Characters can be bitter, damaged, violent, taciturn. You know, you could make great decisions. If you're playing an enforcer, right, for a mob, and you have to justify to yourself the things that you do, that could be making, I don't know, someone who hasn't paid their loan. Yeah, you know what? Sure. He owns a business. He works, you know, 18 hours a day, and, you know, he has a wife and pile of kids at home. But he hasn't paid. And you got a job to do, because if you don't do it, someone else will. And by that, it's either someone else is going to work on you, or you know that your style of encouraging loan repayment is probably softer than that other guy's. And so when you got to go in and you say, you know, look, all right, look, Mr. Freely. Mr. Drin Freely. All right, so that's off of Drink Freely. But yeah, there we go. So Mr. Drin Freely has a wife and pile of kids, owns a business, works, you know, 16, sometimes 18 hours a day, yet he's fallen behind. You got to go and get that money. Welcome to noir storytelling. Everyone, you know, everyone has a story. Everyone's still a piece of this setting. And you know if you don't do it, someone else will. And you're either going to get punished, or someone's just going to go and is going to break his, is going to break his head. And what good could that do? And so when you go into his house and you sit down with him and you say, all right, Mr. Freely, you know why I'm here. And he nods and he says, I know why you're here, sir. And you say, you know what I got to do? And he says, I know what you got to do, but can you? And you go, you know what I have to do. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a choice. You can choose your left hand or your right hand. Whichever hand's more important to you and what you're doing and what your family needs, you can keep it. The hand that is not as important, this idle hand, I need you to... You see that nightstand there, Mr. Freely? Can you open that drawer for me, please? Good, good. Now, make a choice. Left hand? Gotcha. Mr. Freely puts his left hand gripping the drawer. Now, Mr. Freely, do you want a countdown? Or do you just want to close your eyes and get it over with when I deem fit? And Mr. Freely stops and thinks, realizing what's going to happen. And he tells you, with even a tear in his eyes, because of the fact you're showing him a mercy. He closes his eyes with a bit of a snuffle, and he tells you that he trusts you. Just get it over quick and clean. You nod. He has his hand in the partially open drawer of the nightstand. He closes his eyes, and there you see a man, a hard-working man with a family to feed and a business to run, and you got a job to do. And there he is kneeling in front of the drawer of his nightstand with his left hand holding like in between. You don't give a countdown, you do exactly what he asked, because damn it, you're a professional. Even if you wish that you weren't. Even if you wish that you weren't good at this, but somehow you are. And you kick. You slam that drawer against the front of the nightstand, breaking all 4 of the fingers on his left hand simultaneously. An audible crunch. Hopefully he passes out from the pain. You might even be nice enough. This is a D&D world. You might even be nice enough that you can somehow, like, put a little salve on the fingers. Not to heal them, but to reduce the pain at least. For only a little while. And then you take yourself out of there. And you gotta go report back to a boss who tells you that you've done a good job. And if you keep it up, good things are waiting for you. You got a promotion. In fact, if that message gets through, your boss will even give you a cut of what Mr. Freely owes you. Or, owes him. You want noir? You want this self-exploration? The delving into the dregs of humanity while looking up at points of light like hope, like stars in the sky, hoping one day maybe you can leave this wretched place and go out to where the sky is pure and clean and open wide, with beautiful places beyond, twinkling stars that haven't been tainted by what's happening here on this world. See, Matter, you're more fun than looking for a dentist, so you got that going for you, which is nice. Yay! A minimum threshold. I'm more fun than looking for a dentist. Oh, no, you're not talking about the seeds, just your second oldest character died? Oh. I, for example, most of the time just listen while drawing, and it's very helpful to develop your imagination. I'm happy for that, Psy-Art. I'd pay for him to turn... I'd pay for him in turn for an IOU. But what happens then, Razia, if he doesn't pay you back? How many people are you gonna give your salary money to? And what if they're not grateful ultimately? I don't know. What if you go on to investigate later on that Mr. Freely has been making a lot of money, but instead he's been gambling with it. Or even he's taken business to a rival mobster. And here you are, you felt bad about having to break his fingers in the drawer of the nightstand. Oh, that son of a gun, you say, even though guns don't exist. Probably not. I know wands are very prevalent in Eberron. Not me, I'm doing my job right. His payments would never be late, because his youngest kid really likes his mini vacation at my house. Oh, it's sort of like to put pressure on, to, you know, like, oh, it'd be a shame, you know. I wouldn't want a kid to go back to a, you know, to a family that couldn't afford it. So, you know, little Tommy is, you know, he's being well fed and, you know, he has all the good toys, but, you know what? You're probably not seeing him again until the money's paid back. I hate the finger punishment in Jackbox, says Misfit. I remember in Cyberpunk, people tried to figure out how my solo trained soldier made his choices. He's finally summarized it when he said, the worst thing you can do, the thing that will screw you up the most, is to think what you're doing is right. When you think you're right, it'll taint your decisions. All of a sudden, he became crystal clear to the other characters. Oh, what an awesome catalyzing moment, Pneumonica. That's some deep stuff, brother. I like this kind of narration. Hey, just because I run things, you know, a little bit more, you know, fantasy, classical D&D, and I keep things PG-13. I can get knee deep. I can get waist deep into this. Yeah, son of a crossbow. I don't often do it. It's not because I don't like the genre or I love exploring human emotion. In fact, Tuesday was an example of what are people willing to pay to get what they want. Jade paid a price to get what she wanted. In a way. Do things always turn out how you hope? If you have a wishing ring and you wish for, you know, what's the example? You wish for like 10,000 gold pieces, but it all falls on your head and crushes you. So you gotta be, not that I'm trying to be coy as a DM, but that's the ultimate collateral, says Klepto. A favor, if they don't pay me back, my favor will take everything that's his wife, daughter will be sold. But if that goes against your boss, Razia, are you gonna go rogue? Are you gonna go against the mob boss that's been employing you and gives you an awesome, you know, you have like the best carriage and the, you know, powerful horses to pull it? You know, it's like a 4 horsepower carriage, but it only has 2 horses. You know, nice sleek black, tinted windows kind of a thing. You know, are you gonna bite that hand that feeds you? Mr. Freely has been spending his money on his side squeeze, Dr. K's wife. Dr. K found out and lashed out after finding... Hello, everyone. Welcome to Noir Storytelling. GM Vault, that is brilliant. The players passing under the window knows that the wife cries often. But they probably don't know that Dr. K is stressed because he's the only person who, for cheap, performs kid surgery. And his wife is, you know, very active while he's out performing surgery. And so he has stress and anger issues. She has, you know, she has love troubles or fidelity issues. And here you are, you're the mob enforcer with more straightforward morals to offer the guy which hand you want to crush. Because Freely has also been going around. And yet, you know what? The party's probably after you because you're the bully. Right? This character's the bully because he's the mob enforcer. He's the face to the bad guys. The party's after him, and look at everything that just happened around it. Better the owner of the 10,000 gold know that you stole it and has the means to deal with the PCs. This is what he gets from a soda can. Can you imagine the horrors of a Happy Meal? That could be a fun challenge. That's true. So yes, for a generic soda, we have just created a very compelling, dark, and deep story for players to go through. I mean, this might as well be Saturday. We just planned a session. No, Victor, I appreciate you sharing that. Because I know that this is it's an important game to you, and it's been building, it's been going. It seems to be very consistent for you as well. You know, because when you first started hanging out here, Victor, I know you're having some trouble, you know, finding like a consistent group, and things were kind of like, you know, back and forth. But Victor, the longer you've been here, and it seems like you've been really getting into your games. Your storylines have been panning out, and you've been getting a lot of consistency. Hamburgers getting stolen, crazy clown barbarians, could be horrifying. News music, yeah. Now building up to the siege, right? In true noir fashion, when catastrophe strikes, gods don't materialize to set things right, and there is rarely a coalition of do-good wizards or incorruptible avengers to right the situation. People with abilities similar to those of your characters will gain are significant to the story and setting and are well known among the people. Many non-player characters never gain experience that yields tactical power. It falls to your character to salvage any possible victory and pick up the pieces. In Eberron, the commoners of the realm are just that, and even the most skilled warriors from the last war might be equivalent to first-level fighters, rogues, or barbarians, while most elite champions of each nation might embody one of the class archetypes at its lowest rung. In this way, your character's experience and ability is amplified by the absence of beings who might run rampant in other settings. This is what primes your character as a force to be revered or feared. Before embarking on your character's inevitable ascension, encourage the DM to pace the story to convey the... this is kind of... I guess it's a little weird if you're reading this as a DM, but anyway. To convey the gravity of your abilities and allow you the time to establish how your character came to possess such talents, whether magical, martial, or otherwise. Academies, mentors, or previous adventurers are all plausible origins for the unconventional practices you've learned, and reveling in those origins might further layer motivations, transgressions, and vices that align with a noir's conceptual core, while keeping your party's characters grounded and mindful of their less than heroic pasts. Former mage rights, insubordinate soldiers, disgraced watchmen, or shamed nobles all possess skills and abilities that separate them from the rest of the inhabitants of the story, but still maintain the theme of being outcast from their usual positions in society. Hey, Tricey, welcome. Oh, Coffee, we've had an amazing discussion so far. You have some VOD watching to catch up on. Razia, and your war's now in a stalemate? You know, Razia, you and Victor might be able to exchange some ideas if you're running some similar content too. Your time as a constable ended badly when you beat some wife-beating doctor within an inch of his life. Now you're just a scumbag mob enforcer. The stupid proprietor of Freely's Enchantments owes my boss a lot of money. The stupid proprietor of Freely's Enchantments owes my boss a lot of money. I took one of his kids as collateral. The boy tells me that Mr. Freely isn't actually his father, nor any of the other children. The gods have a sick sense of humor. Oh man, Klepto, you're making this deep layer by layer. I don't. So is that a twist now for everyone as we're delving further and further in? While noir characters are flawed individuals, they stand out in a grimy world because they are driven by some positive force or ambition. Professional pride, a code of sense or honor, perhaps simply a desire to see justice done in a world where the law won't provide it, are all motivations that keep a character from becoming as damned as the world around them. At times in noir stories, it isn't only the survival of a character that matters, but rather the persistence of their motivations that propels the story, pardon me, even in defeat. Without a reason to try and rise above the situation, your character might succumb to their vices and flaws, or simply fade into the melancholy monotony of their black and white purgatory. When creating a character, work with your DM to identify intrinsic victories that don't necessarily require beating the adversary of each encounter. Embrace the possibility of a failure and communicate with the party to understand when the exit strategy is the best plan available. Pardon. By establishing motivations like these in advance with your DM, the story can continue to move forward even if your character meets a poignant dead end. It's like a snack, super twisty. Yeah, storytelling is awesome stuff. What are you saying thanks for, Derek? Transgression. Every person is haunted by mistakes and regret. Even those who've made peace with failure know that transgressions shape the core of their personality, perspective, and outlook on the world. I mean, look, for as much as I certainly like to be a very happy, optimistic person, and I am in almost all instances, I've done stuff in the past that I regret, whether as a kid or as an adult. You know, even if it was by accident, I look back and I say, wow, that was really dumb, or that was whatever. You know, that's what makes these characters, even if they're not human, that's what makes these characters human. That's why you can relate. You know, if you are playing a goblin at a bar and a dragonborn walks in and plops down beside you, why the two of you, despite your vast differences, can still share a beer and share a story. And you know what? At the end of that drinking session, you may never see each other again, or you might realize that, you know what? That was the guy I was supposed to kill. The person says, you know what? That was the guy that was supposed to kill me. But there in the bar, in that neutral territory, for whatever reason, you have that moment where the predator and the prey sit down for a couple hours, share their regrets, maybe even talk about the situation with a morbid, like a clinical detachment. And when it's all over, heck, we'll twist it. We'll say that the Goblin is the hunter and the Dragonborn is the hunted. Goblin looks at the Dragonborn and says, "Thanks. You bought me around. That'll probably buy you about 10 minutes. Thanks. I really appreciate it tonight, buddy." The Dragonborn looks down. "No problem, buddy. I enjoyed it too. With any luck, you won't see me in 10 minutes, 10 days. Probably because you won't see me coming. Wink." And the Goblin laughs. "I wouldn't be so sure. Now get out of here." And then he turns to finish his beer, sipping it slowly, giving the Dragonborn quarry 10 minutes to get out of here. Maddie's biggest regret, if I invented Instagram, I don't know if that would be a regret, but I would definitely be putting that money towards some interesting uses. One fun thing I did was pull off a successful rebellion against a stronger foreign power. Once the foreign power destabilized, the world was invaded by outsiders who could have been stopped by the foreign power. Oh, those twists. Oh, Bombard, yep. I couldn't write dozens of story outlines from a single prompt. I do it in my head all the time for no reason. I thought it was the selfie stick. Hey, I'll take that selfie stick money and put it towards good use. GM Vault, thank you very much for that resubscription. And enjoy your spicy salsa. What your character is willing to risk and what they aren't becomes central to the journey ahead when viewed through the lens of the past. In this sort of story, no one is perfect, and the typical tragic past where the character was played for a patsy or a hapless victim of circumstance won't provide the type of depth that is so rewarding throughout a typical noir story. These sins should be selfish. Giving into greed with the knowledge that a disastrous outcome was possible, or purposely ignoring the warning of a friend, makes whatever choice presented to the character at the time more appealing, and the consequence and guilt entirely their own. It can be a slow burn secret revealed over time to the party, or a shameful brand your character wears openly to atone. Not only can such sins help create story hooks for your DM, but they allow you and your group to negotiate what each character regrets and why, paving the way for mutual storytelling that can further the atonement process for their wrongdoing, eventually surmounting the condition of their suffering. By the way, this is not content that is just in a... it is not just inside of a sealed chamber, a vacuum. And I will show you. Remember, there's a lot of, hello, if you remember, if you were around when we were doing Wayfinder's Guide content, every character we made had a regret. Right? So imagine this. You're making a character. Roll a d10. 6. You engaged in covert operations for a nation, either as a spy or soldier. While you were serving your country, you did unforgivable things. This is level 0, level 1 stuff. This happened before you got your, whatever, your first level or your first couple levels. This is a regret your character, and so this is why it's hard-baked into the Eberron setting. If you don't have a regret, you had a debt. Why do you owe someone money, and why are you willing to look the other way in order to earn it? Let's roll a d10. 9. You've got an opportunity to join an influential secret society, but you've only got 1 month to raise the membership dues. What'll it take? You want to get in on that multi-level marketing? You want to get in on that Illuminati? You want to get in on that... It's a freaky pleasure cult. But they only have recruitment at certain times, and your name was drawn. And despite it being a vice of yours, you want into that club and all it has to offer. What are you willing to do to get the money to join a, you know, a personal club like that? Oh, nice. Yeah, so you did bring back an old character, Victor. That can be fun to do. Delcorin, you're the Wheaton of the channel. In the siege, one of the heroes defending the wall was a Knoll wannabe gunslinger. Okay, yep, okay, so that was that. Might take some time, but you got it, Chemist, and I'll do what I can. A fantasy Amway. Yeah, there we go. Or fantasy Girl Scout cookies. But in a noir setting, are they made with real Girl Scouts? Says Wednesday Adams. Not only can such sins help create story hooks for your DM, but they allow you and your group to negotiate what each character regrets and why, paving the way for mutual storytelling that can further the atonement process for their wrongdoing. They're little girls selling illegal crack? Oh my goodness, Chemison. Dude, Chemison, I don't want you, like, make sure you're taking care of your bills here, brother. I appreciate it, but, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, you got to take care of yourself, man, before you can take care of other people. Well, I am humbled, Chemison, and I'll take these as signs of a job well done in what we're doing here. It's not crushed yet, Razia. He's looking for his Goblin mercenary band and looking to make his mark in history. Also wants to return to his mother. See, I like that, Victor, when you have like a good, like a hard soldier character like that, but he has that, I want to see my mom again. You know, you're describing like a Knoll warrior, you know, engaged in war, 12 years he's been missing, but he's gritty, he's survived. But at his core, he wants to see his mom again. I like that kind of compelling aspect. Oh, come here, you want to say hi? Come on. Hey, come say hi. All right, so they allow your group to negotiate what each character regrets and why, paving the way for mutual storytelling that can further the atonement process for their wrongdoing, eventually surmounting the condition with their suffering. The classic detective is a rough-and-tumble, snub-nosed, hard drinker with a broken heart, but your character might prefer gambling, companionship, or brawling to release their tensions. There's a... For interesting alternatives, check out the Maid RPG rules, because they have way for dealing with tension as well. As a player, you might wish to expand on these vices. If the character likes to drink, do they prefer hard dwarf whiskey or fine wines? Do they like to carouse with dozens or drink alone to numb the pain? What are the parameters of the activity your character can't pass up, and how far are they willing to go to sate such the beast? In some cases, such a vice would throw a wrench into the most carefully laid plans and present a crucial story moment when the intervention of the group, or perhaps the wherewithal to grapple the vice head-on in order to save the party, leads to the vice finally being conquered. As the tropes of addicts, alcoholics, brawlers, and gamblers are quickly exhausted, Oh, shame, look at this. Oh no, they used the wrong your. That's it. Refund. No, just kidding. Work with your DM and the other players to distinguish alternatives and provide characters that are as different in their shattered pasts as they will become in their future adventures. These campaigns allow groups to inhabit unethical worlds with flawed characters who are cynical but pray for moral ground. Characters might find the crimes with each session provide quandaries unique to an evolving amoral code, ripe with the futility of the old ways, and will likely grapple with the changing value systems of society as a whole. When flexing its full weight, this style lends itself to unsavory criminal elements, and sometimes the analyzing of brutal crime scenes, even when handled delicately, might be too much for both a DM or a player. This is an important note. We are talking We're talking pulp. We're talking not just like a person who's been reduced to pulp. We're talking pulp. We're talking noir. We're talking, you know, grit. This can be too much for some people. Make sure in that session 0, or you're having constant communication. You don't have to be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? After every single scene. Make sure that the path down which you're traveling is one that is still appropriate. Only you can make that decision. Only you can set those boundaries. Brave roleplay in such adventures should be treated just as cautiously as the moral lines the characters stride, and everyone must agree to the shapes the scenes might take from the outset. More than any other style of campaign, regular communication can help the explorations of such things to be consensual and thoughtful, and focus on aftercare and a focus on aftercare should remain paramount between sessions. And then we'll end this segment, because then I'll take a break and we'll come back for more. The cost of winning. When exploring the seedy underbelly of any situation or encounter, real or imagined, remember that you have entered into a social contract of trust and respect with the group, and each in turn has agreed to honor those gifts during the course of your experience together. Collaborative storytelling in gaming requires thoughtful consideration of all those who have come to play, and while every game may not be for every player, the kindness that maintains these friendships and bonds we forge together is exactly why these mutual pursuits can change the world for the better. If ever in doubt, put the well-being of those engaged ahead of winning the scene. This isn't a question of winning or losing. The question is, what do you do with the time the gods loan you? Roz, you have a character like that too. Klepto, any DMs, GMs out there want some random story arcs? I'll give you some rough ideas. I feel like throwing stuff out of my head. You'll be back later? All right, Victor, we'll see you back later. Can I ask about the art prompt in the Discord? Because I have a question if anyone can help. Oh, yeah, so Oh Sheeps. I'll tell you what, real quick. If you want to roll for a random trinket, and you want to use that as the challenge for the art challenge, you can type !1D100, and I'll go to the player's handbook and I'll tell you which trinket you have as a prompt. Or if you just want to look up a list yourself and choose one, you can. All right, a 30. All right, Oh Sheeps. Let's take a look at trinket number 30. Now, trinkets in D&D are things that aren't necessarily magic items, but they're odd. They're compelling. They do something that is just a little bit out there. In Oh Sheeps, you rolled a 30. A blank book whose pages refuse to hold ink, chalk, graphite, or any other substance of marking. A blank book whose pages refuse to hold ink, chalk, graphite, or any other substance or marking. One of those trinkets should be an arrowhead with the character's name on it. Razia, you want to get in the art challenge? So yeah, an 84, a receipt of deposit at a bank in a far-flung city. You know, in terms here, let's say that you lived in, let's say you lived in Chicago, and you, I don't know, you wake up one day and there's a receipt from some little hometown bank in Oklahoma. You've never been to Oklahoma. You don't have an account at this bank, even if it is a regional bank. And why does the bank receipt have a deposit of $20, but a withdrawal of $679? Oh, that's the start of a mystery. That sounds like magical toilet paper, the anti-marking. Hey, Luke, it's great to see you. Welcome, man. Great to have you, man. How have you all been doing? Actually, like, you can tell me how you're doing. I got to get up and get a quick break. I have to refresh my beverage here, and I'll be back. Like, I'll still chat a little bit here, but I want to get up and take a walk around and stretch my legs. Going to bed? All right, have a great night, Rhodey. I hope you've been enjoying this this dive into storytelling. Oh, gotcha, Luke. Well, hey, if we can be a source of positivity or, you know, like a good vent or something, let us know. Okay, no problem, Derek. And here for Luke,